the stream. Hey everybody, welcome to Base. I'm here, this is Nixops, and I'm joined today with Geeknik. Geeknik, you want to introduce yourself and what you do, and kind of give everybody that's listening what's going on?
Hey, what's up? This is Geeknik. I'm a freelance security researcher. Some of y'all may know me. I do a lot of fuzzing with Firefox, image libraries, stuff like that. Also, recently started farming, so that's something we're going to chat about a little bit later too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on tonight. And for people who aren't aware of what fuzzing is, can you give the ELI 5 of what fuzzing actually is?
Yeah, basically fuzzing is where you take a lot of randomly malformed inputs for software and you just throw them at the software and see what happens. If it crashes, then maybe you have something exploitable. Maybe not. But yeah, you just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks.
So I have a question for you on that regards. How many exploits have you found, like, say, in the last year? Because you and I have conversations quite frequently about certain things. Explain to people why the exploits are important, and then also explain, like, if you can, and then also, like, explain to people, like, how pitiful the bug bounty situation is for those types of things.
I've probably found 4 or 5 exploitable bugs this year in Firefox alone. I wouldn't say that they were super critical or anything like that. Even Mozilla couldn't come to the conclusion whether or not anybody could actually exploit them meaningfully. But they still pay bounties, and so I keep at it.
Nice. Now,
what was the other part of your question?
I was saying, like, to kind of walk people through some of the pain points of, like, the pitiful scenarios of the bug bounties, like how some businesses actually will refuse to pay a bug bounty, even if you have, like, a clear exploit, right? Like, because that's something we've talked about before in private, and, something that, like, I've also seen you complain about on Twitter and retweet. Some people have no idea that companies really don't care to pay for security researchers who find bugs and clearly exploitable ones.
It's true. I had a couple of bugs with a mobile company that I don't really want to name because I still have some stuff pending with them.
Nice.
But they were remotely exploitable and they impacted employees, not customers. And so I submitted them, and they did the whole thank you for your time. This is not eligible for a bounty for whatever reason. And, they're like, but, give us your name and the company you work for and we'll put you on a website. So, yeah, there's a lot of companies like that. Mozilla is really good, though. I mean, I think they could do a little bit better with the amounts they pay. But
at least they're doing something in comparison to others.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, because I know some companies don't even do anything. Some don't even acknowledge, even if you get, like what you're describing, the exploit that you found in a certain mobile company was impacting employees. Well, that's a pretty critical bug or a pretty critical exploit vector, because literally your employees have sensitive personal information and private proprietary access to certain things, including emails and internal docs and stuff. So, like, to me, that seems like that would also be a priority. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, if you can keylog an employee, from your office, I think that's worth something other than, hey, this guy found a bug on this website. Thanks.
So you also do website scanning, because that was something you brought up in relation to like scanning our site, my site of Cyberpunk Labs and stuff like that. How often is it that you find cross-site scripting and things like that to be able to be had, and how easy or how prevalent is it in your like day to day to just go out and start scanning and find XSS and stuff like that?
On a random sample of say 1,000,000 endpoints, I'd probably find maybe 100 cross-site scripting, and of those, not a lot of them are real meaningful in any way.
Nice.
But they're still out there.
Yeah, but I mean, so we talk about we're referring to it like because we know about cross-site scripting. So for some of the people who may be listening, can you describe what a cross-site scripting is for like someone who may not understand what we mean by XSS and stuff?
Yeah, it's a vulnerability that in server-side code that allows an attacker to inject client-side code. Basically, say somebody shares a link with you, you visit it, and it redirects you to a lookalike site. So you can do phishing, you can do key logging, impersonation, steal cookies, stuff like that. It's not. It used to be, people did cross-site scripting so they could deface websites, but it's gotten a lot more invasive these days.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, everybody used to cross-site script to deface like FBI.gov or like NASA or something like that, just because that was like your coming of age kind of thing. Like you were going to be a hacker, you needed to be able to deface a site and like prove that it was you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
The 90s internet was a great thing.
Yep.
So,
now they have there's the Twitter account that posts cross-site scripting payloads, and every once in a while they'll post some payloads that let you play a game. I think there's a Doom one floating around, which is pretty funny.
I mean, did you see the person that got Doom running on the IoT pregnancy test? Did you see that?
I did not.
Oh, yeah, somebody got, it was on Twitter, and at first it was a joke, but then people kept pressing them, but they got Doom running on a pregnancy test.
That is awesome. I think that's also kind of a coming of age thing, is seeing if you can put Doom on everything, like your toaster or your refrigerator.
Or your washing machine now. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
I remember when people were talking about home automation and what was it, like the late 90s, early 2000s, and, we would have to like, there was some storage so you could run like a super small version of NetBSD, and you may be able to get a network socket that you would have to solder and, write like a driver for it so that you could post that like, some kind of like, notification topic to a device that says like, the water is filled or something, or the cycle is ended, you know what I mean? And now, and now there are fucking refrigerators that have like all these interfaces and stuff on them, and they're, you find them on Shodan, and they're a lot of fun to play with if you got time,
Yeah, who would ever thought that there'd be a version of Apache running on a refrigerator?
I think that's some dystopian-esque, that's some 1940-esque bullshit right there, and dystopian as fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you would have told me, in 2020, all of my kitchen appliances would be talking to the internet, I'd have been like, yeah, whatever.
But then the real question is why, though? But the real question is why? Like, think about it. Why does my toaster need to be on the internet?
I can't answer that. I mean, I guess somebody somewhere expressed a need for it. I mean, I don't even want it to connect to my phone through Bluetooth.
Yeah.
I can sit there and wait for the toast to pop up. I don't need to have a notification. Ding, the toast is done. What?
I could hear it pop up. Like, what the hell? And then, like, I hate to say this, but, like, a lot of people were like, all these things are great, and yes, they are to some level, but the problem is that we have gotten away from the idea of self-hosted. Like I remember in the early 2000s, helping people with security camera installs, and they wanted to be able to access it, so you set them up with proper HTTP auth. Only they knew the IP address. You set up to a dynamic DNS. You know what I mean? Like you set them up where only they could access it. And now there's like all these apps that automate it, and it makes it easy. But then people don't realize that trade-off is them collecting large amounts of data, including the film from their home.
Exactly. Amazon will sell access to your home security cameras to the police.
Yeah. There's actually an organization for that, as a matter of fact. Who was it? The EFF, probably, what was it, a month ago, I had retweeted about it, but they basically listed, and they have a great data point where you can actually go in to your neighborhood from all the neighborhoods that they got a lot of information from, counties and cities, and you can actually see whether or not your local police department has an agreement with Amazon to access Ring cameras without warrant.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think that's a very scary thing. You know what I mean? Like, let me find it real quick while we're talking right now, and I'll pull it up. But I mean, I think that's one of the most dangerous things that people really don't realize. Like, an indicator that this was all bad should have been when Alexa was used in a murder case. Whenever they were using the clips and stuff that was pulled, like that's a bad sign.
Well, have you seen the new Ring device that will tie into your whole Ring system? It's the little autonomous drone that will fly around your house whenever Ring detects an anomaly.
Okay, like, what the hell? Like, that's not even cool. I mean, like,
I had to check the calendar. It was April 1st again.
Yeah. Because all of this stuff is stuff we would joke about, right, years ago, like, haha, one day this stuff's going to happen. But literally it's coming true. And I think that the problem is that people aren't educated about the privacy implications, nor the dangers of the risk, right? Like, they don't know.
No, and I think a lot of people just don't want to know about it. They're just happy being blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, but that ignorance is dangerous. Like, I don't have children, but I can tell you right now that if I had kids, I wouldn't want a security camera ran by a third party in my home, because let's get real, not everyone that works for those companies are the most savory. And let's also get real again. What happens if someone gains access to it and they don't realize it? Because when someone reported that there was a vulnerability, they just scoffed at it or ignored it or just chalked it up that it's not a critical,
Mm-hmm.
But the perception is that these services are safe, right? Like Google does it, Amazon's doing it, Apple does it, everybody does it, and then everybody's just kind of okay with it, you know what I mean? And I think that's a dangerous, it's a very dangerous slope, because why are we trusting these companies that have proven time and time again that, like, you can't trust them with data? Like, humanity's not prepared to deal with data, so why aren't we giving them data?
Yeah, I just don't understand the need to be that free with everything towards these companies. I used to be a big fan of Google, and I used to participate in their bug bounties and do this, that, and the other. And then I started reading things about them, and things started coming out about their relationships with this country and that country, and I was like, I can't do it no more.
What happened to "Don't Be Evil," right? I mean, I still have one of the umbrellas when Google had that as their like slogan, "Don't be evil," right? Obviously, we know that that's not even the case anymore. And furthermore, the other problem with Google is that these companies have put themselves in this position where lawmakers in them are so far behind, which technology obviously evolves a lot faster than law, but like, they get in this position where they can pretty much kind of play off any type of charges or any type of things that would be considered a grave misstep by a small company, yet these big companies just continue to just buy their way out of it, and with disregard to the consumer.
That's very true. And you bring up the do not be evil. I remember when it was announced that they removed that from their website or from their company, whatever mission statement or whatever, and that was a big turning point, I believe, for a lot of people's attitude towards Google. But again, plenty of people need Google in their lives, I guess.
I mean, but they're getting better, alternatives. Like DuckDuckGo is pretty good, not gonna lie. It's getting better. It's not on the same caliber. And then people say, "Oh, well, I don't." What's that?
They've had an advertising blitz here. Like I've started seeing DuckDuckGo billboards in Oklahoma City. That was kind of strange.
There's a DuckDuckGo down here in the middle of rural Mississippi. There's a DuckDuckGo on Interstate 10 in between one of the little cities. It's crazy. It's like, what? Because it caught me off guard. I was like, why is there a DuckDuckGo billboard here? But then even on the local radio stations, they play the ads for it, which is good. I mean, I get it. They need that. Mm-hmm. But, I support these types of projects and, obviously that are counter to the narrative, because the collection of user data and searches and stuff, what people don't realize is that, like, these companies are farming out massive amounts of data sets about people. Like, for example, they can tell when your wife or you or your partner or whatever is pregnant based on your searches, and, tie them back to your IP address and start showing you targeted ads,
Plus they track your purchases.
Yep. And then all of a sudden Walmart, Target, somebody knows you guys are pregnant or whatever, and they don't you didn't even tell anybody, right? Like that was a couple of years ago, the family in, I forget what state, where Target had detected that the daughter may be pregnant and sent her a book or sent her a catalog to the house, and the dad had no idea, kind of thing. And it was like, that was when people started realizing how dangerous the data collection is, and even then, people were just like, it's okay. But Congress and law enforcement have done nothing but champion the data collection, which I think is kind of fucked up, because at the end of the day, this is pervasive and very invasive tactics that are being deployed against consumers who aren't necessarily technically savvy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's the way federal law is written, there's no recourse to take, no constitutional protections, basically, because, they're private companies. So until Congress steps up and does something, the consumers is going to have to deal with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but, just like with cell phone providers and stuff, right? Like, so me and Not Dan were talking about this when he was on the show a few weeks back. And basically, like internet service providers and such, they're not under municipality grabs anymore. And because of that, there is this concept that the ISP is allowed to collect this data now. And then also your cell phone provider and your cell phone, service provider is allowed to collect this information and design and build targeting. At what point do we remove that? Because it would be like the power company knowing when you turn something on. They're not allowed to know what you've turned on. They're just allowed to know that you're using electricity. You see what I mean?
Yeah. And I've heard rumors that some of the utility companies, they're using machine learning on electrical patterns so they can identify what the consumers are using inside their house.
I mean, I'm going to say this is going to sound kind of gross, but I really don't want my power company knowing I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to take a piss. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's kind of invasive. You know what I mean? Like, that's a problem.
A little bit, because, then they're going to call your insurance company and they're going to notify them that you've been up, at 2 a.m. every day this week. And then the insurance company is going to call your doctor, and your doctor is going to call you and say, hey, you need to come in and talk to us.
Yeah, that's a scary world to look at, right? Like, some people would see that as beneficial and like, oh, they're just looking out. But like the flip side of that is that it's really not beneficial. That's a very dangerous boundary to cross. And I think that when you start looking at it like from that standpoint, where you start getting in doctors and stuff involved in your healthcare and stuff and your insurance and costs, and like at what point do you retain privacy as a citizen, right? Like at what point are you able to keep your like your privacy, like where people don't know everything that's going on in your life?
I don't know if it's possible to do that. Honestly, just wait until the toilet Bluetooth to your phone and connects to Google Health or iOS Health or whatever, and it's like, oh, we've detected high levels of this, and we're calling 911.
Jesus. We have seen that you have drank a lot of alcohol tonight because it is New Year's. We're going to contact an EMT to come out there and get on there to help you out. Like, what the fuck, right? I mean, where do you draw the line, though? Where do you draw the line, right? Like, and I know that, like, you're focused on security and things like that, and I'm a big privacy advocate and big time, proponent of these things. So, like, where do we start helping empower people to actually like pull this shit show back around, and like, or is it too late?
I'm of the mind that it's probably too late for a lot of us. I mean, maybe if you were born tomorrow and you never left, I guess, a house and went outside and had your face recorded anywhere, you might be able to be anonymous. I mean, I know how I'm going to try and reverse some of this. I've got 80 acres in the middle of nowhere that I'm going to start working on here pretty soon, and I'm going off grid.
Nice.
Still going to have internet service, obviously, because
can't live without that.
Kind of hard to advertise a business without the internet, but yeah.
It's also hard to run Geeknik Labs or Geeknik Farms without the internet, right? Like, you kind of need that because you got to be able to send emails and stuff. I mean, yeah, like the thing where I see it as being problematic is like, at what point when will we as consumers be able to fight for lobbying to prevent ISPs and cell phone provider services from collecting this data? Because I think that's the most instinctual piece, that once we get to that point where internet service providers can't collect data, and then we say that your cell phone provider cannot collect data, I think that's a good start. You know what I mean? I think that's a good start, a great start to at least opening the doorway to retaining some privacy.
It is a good start, but I think it all comes down to money, and big telecom and big tech, they have all the money and they want all the data, so they're not gonna allow someone to come in and try and sway it the other way, unless you can convince one of those big companies. But how are you going to do that?
I mean, stranger things have happened. Look at Netscape. Netscape went open source at a time in which nobody thought anybody was going to, right? I mean, that was a big step. That was a big change.
Man, I miss Netscape. Those are the days.
Well, I mean, that's how we got Mozilla, right? There are movements and changes that can happen. I think that the world that we live in is not, that people have it in their head that these trade-offs are just the way, and like, it's just, there's no other way because they're not being told that there is. You know what I mean? Like, you take a look, for example, even on your phone, right? People talk about Google and how Android's open source and it's great. Yes, Android is open source. However, most people are still using Google Play services, which is not 100% open source, and that collects all kinds of data from the phone with the app installed and literally gives that data up. So you got Copperhead and Graphene, which are trying to change that, and you have this movement towards like, hey, we're trying to get rid of all this third-party data collection. But at the same time, like, what's it matter if the people who own the pipeline are collecting the data? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, Google Play Services is like one of the biggest culprits of spyware on Android.
Yes, they are. I know. Trust me, I wrote Android apps for a while. I know one of the pros and cons of being a Java developer, which I've sworn off, is that you learn to write and work with Android. And what you realize is that there are so much intrusive things that are in most apps that people just don't even understand. And it's scary because these companies you don't know are collecting this data and your interactions with those things, and then they're selling them for ads, they're selling them for whatever they can get money for, and that's how they monetize. Anytime, like a product gives you something for free, you should be very careful, because that means you're the product, and when you're the product, it never ends well for you.
Exactly.
But hey, you have one question. By the way, B2LEE wants to know what kind of goats you're going to be raising on the farm.
Oh, this guy and his infatuation with goats. I love it. I'm thinking of getting some of the fainting goats, because they are hilarious. If you yell at them, they freeze up and fall over, and it's just going to be nonstop comedy.
So are you going to be live streaming some of this so that we can all enjoy on it and do some gambling? I mean, dude, that's what you should do. I mean, just put it on there, give them 2 addresses, and we'll all bet Bitcoin on which one's going to fall over first. I mean, might make you some...
That's a good idea. I like that.
Put the chickens up there. Which one's going to run up and grab the feed first? Degens are gambling on anything right now, man, as far as this DeFi and stuff. Why not profit off of it, right? Especially if you're not doing anything illicit, so who cares?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hell, we could take bets on when we're going to get rain, because this place where we're going to have the farm, they get about 10 inches of rain annually. So it's going to be a challenge, but habaneros don't need a lot of water, so I think we'll be all right. So
for some people who may have just kind of stopped in, so you're pivoting. Actually, you're not pivoting. You're still going to be running Geeknik Labs, and then you're going to be running Geeknik Farms, correct?
Well, the hope is within 5 years I don't submit another bug report ever again, and I can just concentrate on doing the farm stuff. But right now I'm still doing the research stuff, help sock away some money for farm operations.
Nice. You're gonna do that off-grid farming. You're gonna be doing that betting with which goat's gonna fall over. Man, I can see this as being a very good project for you, man. I really can. I mean,
yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be challenging though, because like I said earlier, it's in the middle of nowhere, so we got to get some right-of-ways. Got to cross some public land, so we're gonna have to deal with Bureau of Land Management. That's always fun.
The Bureau of Land Management, how to end a dream really quickly, right? Because those guys,
exactly.
those ladies and gentlemen have this tendency. Sometimes they'll be on your side, and the next thing you know, they're gonna pull the rug under you and oh yeah, well, we changed our mind because yes, we told you we could build a road, but then we dug up some research, and there's a 12% chance that this one bird may fly over it once every 3 or 4 years, and yeah. I mean, I get that, but at the same time, it's it's not a consistent thing, right? They're if it's in a migratory bird path, I get it, but if it's a 4 to 6% chance, and I'm using this as an example because this happened to a friend of mine in California land management. He was trying to get a road built, and literally the excuse they gave him for first saying yes and then changing was that every few years there's a percentage chance that this one flock may fly over, and that vehicles may cause them problems if they decide to fly low. Now bear in mind, 300 feet to the east of where his proposal was, there is a road that runs over a stream that they approved that actually ended up creating harm for salmon hatchery, but they were okay with that.
Government bureaucracy, gotta love it. There is an existing road though, so there is hope that we will be able to utilize some of that.
Well, that's good. And so, I know this is personal, but is the family happy about the movement to the farm? Or, you know what I mean? Is that a good thing, or is it a unsure thing?
No, the wife is super excited about it. All of our kids are grown and elsewhere, so we don't have to worry about that. Extended family, like parents and whatnot, they're kind of ambivalent.
Yeah.
So let it play out. And I was like, hey, we got enough land. All of y'all can move out there and just, we ain't got to even see each other. 80 acres is a good plot. And plus it borders public land. So you got 640 acres and nothing that way and 640 acres the other way. So hell, I ain't never got to see you.
Be just like normal, right? Except on the holidays, right?
Right.
I mean, I make that joke, but like that's the reality, right? Like a lot of people, they don't realize that like as you get older and things like that, you don't see your family very often, and then like when you do, even then you're just like, can we make this in small doses? You know what I mean? Like you love them, but at the same time, you don't want to necessarily be around them, right?
Yeah. I'm one of those old-fashioned guys. Me and the wife have Sunday dinner with my parents every week. So
that's fucking awesome, man. I love that. That's a good tradition to have, man. I mean, like that's something that a lot of people, take for granted, is being able to see these people all the time too. So like, there's this trade-off, right? And I think it's good to be family oriented, and I think that that's important for more productive lives too, because like right now there's a lot of this movement of getting rid of the idea and concepts of family, but man, if you look at what it's done, it has created nothing but a bunch of people who are not responsible for themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I don't understand that movement at all.
Yeah, like
seems like as you get older, family tries to drift apart a little bit, but we've managed to keep ours kind of close together, which I guess is kind of helpful, especially during the middle of a pandemic.
Did you say pandemic or plandemic? Because I like to refer to it as the scamdemic, but if you're a big company during all this, what's that?
It could be a plandemic. I mean, there's no telling what China's got up their sleeves.
There really isn't. I mean, there was that whistleblower.
I don't want to digress into some tinfoil hat shit.
No tinfoil hat shit, but meanwhile I'm moving off grid so I don't have to deal with humans anymore. Okay. Got it.
Humans are why we can't have nice things, man.
They really are, because somebody's got to make money off of it. I mean, I was just bringing up that the whistleblower who was suppressed and all this other stuff, those things came out about China and stuff. And like, not bringing in nation states or anything, but I will say that like there's so much crap that you have to weed through and wade through these days to even get accurate information. And then like the sad part is that we have to wade through the crap to get accurate information. Meanwhile, we're openly giving this to companies to get all the accurate information about us.
Yeah, they don't even have to run intelligence operations. They just have to put a server up on the internet and release a shiny app and say, hey, download me.
Like those face apps and stuff, like people taking pictures of their kids and things like that. And I'm like, if I ever had kids, I would be like, you know what, you need to be 18 before you get on social media or have a phone and a cell phone with apps. And people are like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because then they get to make the decision on whether or not they want to give that data out. I think that that's important in today's time for people to understand that, like, yeah, it's cute you took a baby photo and stuff like that, but like, should you share that with the world so they can start data modeling what your kids look like and future casting what they may look like, so they can start tying it together and figuring out what your purchasing patterns are and all kinds of other things,
Not only that, can they even give consent? Because what can they consent to before they reach the age of majority? So
yeah. I mean,
I'm totally behind that. So when my ex-wife was like, hey, we're getting our 10-year-old a phone, I was like, why?
Why? Yeah, I mean, that's scary. Like the other day I was in the grocery store, man, and there was, and I thought this like kid was probably about 6, right? And walking around with a cell phone, and at first I thought it was the mother's phone, right? But no, it was his own phone. Like there's a kid walking around with the camera running, and I couldn't tell what app it was, and I didn't want to be intrusive, but like I just found that to be bothersome. Like I found that to like shake me to my core, that this parent's walking around letting a child operate some kind of stream of content in like a public place. And I dude, like the boogeyman is fucking real because literally that's how people get snatched up, not paying attention to their adversaries all over the internet. And especially now, it's so easy for them to be able to pick this stuff up. You know what I mean?
Very, very true. Very true.
I mean, back in the day, you had to be convinced by some chat room that they weren't a pedo. But like now, these kids, they just outbound, and these people can determine where they are because EXIF data and such. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I'm done with that rant. Go ahead.
Yeah, my one of my nieces got in trouble. Well, she didn't really get in trouble. She got in trouble with her mom, but she was involved in some deal where some pictures were floating around her school with that shouldn't have been floating around. So yeah, parents need to do a lot better job of monitoring what their damn kids are doing on the internet.
Well, I mean, back in the 90s, you know, like I grew up on the internet in the 90s, right? And back then it was just, you know, you had some chat rooms, but you didn't fucking give and divulge shit because, you know, like I grew up playing outside in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? Like you went outside, you played, you didn't tell random motherfuckers anything. You didn't even tell them when your parents went to work or anything. And then like you just kind of took that behavior to the internet because it was dangerous. Like, you know, like I remember my mom telling me when I was growing up, yeah, you remember all the Stranger Thing? That's probably what you should do on there. I don't know. You know, she was never big into the internet or anything like that. So for her, it was alien. And then like for myself, it was like, I just kind of inferred that if you can't trust people in person, why are you going to trust somebody you can't see? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But the babysitter model of technologies.
Oh yeah. Let's just hand them a screen with some flashing colors and some loud sounds and keep them entertained. I guess that's what passes for parenting in 2020.
I think that's what passes for parenting in the last 8 years. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was like you though. You know, played outside in the 80s. You know, didn't have, you know, parents hovering over you, or, you know, you didn't have to wear a leash or, you know, come home when the street lights come on.
Yep.
Don't make me come looking for you. I remember my mom saying that. Because if she had to come looking for you, it wasn't going to be a good trip home.
Oh yeah, the yelling though, you know this. As soon as the street lights are coming on or something, that would be the one time they would yell for you. Kids.
Yes.
And then like if you didn't rush home to get ready to go eat dinner, you were in some shit. You know what I mean? Like you were in shit. Like you were in trouble. You could already expect the next day or two was going to be filled with you doing garbage extra stuff because you fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yep. None of this, I'm taking your phone away for an hour.
Yeah, like what good is an hour going to do? I remember when I didn't have phone privileges for a week for running up the phone bill for accessing a BBS in New York. You know what I mean? Like, actually, it was a month, but that's because I had to pay it back. I just got it. I ended up working, cutting grass and stuff to pay it back in a week. So I got phone privileges back, which meant I could use the internet.
That's nice. Yeah, I got kicked out of school for a week. Me and a buddy had set off some stink bombs, and he flipped on me, and I got kicked out. Man, I got grounded. I couldn't drive anywhere for 3 months. I had to quit my job.
Damn.
It was awful.
That's savage, man. Like,
Kids
how to quit your job.
Easy today.
Yeah, they do, man. But like, I think that also comes with this shift in paradigm where they're, you know, like, you saw it too. Like in the 80s, you know, there wasn't like, you would watch TV, but it wasn't like the only thing. The 90s was more TV prevalent. You had a lot more content on. Internet was burgeoning, growing up, and then, you know, in the 2000s, you had the widespread proliferation of high-speed internet just being the way, and then cell phones introducing it. And then what you saw is this, like, now constant desire and constant need for content, even like content like this, where there are people, I don't think any of the listeners of this show do it, but there are people who literally, who go from one thing to the next, and that's all they do. They're just constantly getting this fix of content from people or things that they may enjoy. But then, like, the rest of their life is kind of in shambles kind of thing, and it's sad because it's creating this whole generation of that. You know what I mean?
I can totally relate. My name is Brian, and I like to consume shitty media. Yeah.
Ryan Calder said he was always the last kid to go home, and that he said that happened to me too. I'm assuming the stink bomb incident. So you got a brother in arms out there, right?
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, like, I consume shitty content too. I also consume a lot of other things, but then again, I also take a lot of breaks from the computer, right? Like, I go outside, hours on end. I go for runs, things like that. I try not to sit in front of a screen all day because, like, yes, every hour I'm sitting in front of the screen is actually getting, like, paid or something because I'm working. But, like, at the same time, where do you draw that boundary? Because, like, especially now during the pandemic, everybody's working from home.
Yeah, I try to get outside as often as I can. I started getting up with the sunrise every morning, so that kind of helps.
I don't get up at sunrise. I get up about an hour after sunrise. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. I get up about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I think that's early enough for somebody who goes to bed at 3 a.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But the state of California is giving us some very beautiful sunrises and sunsets.
Oh, you have to send me some pictures.
It's something California is good for. Sorry to be affected by the California wildfires, but
well, I know Ryan's from California, but yeah, I mean it's terrible, but at the same time, kind of true, right? Like, I mean, California right now during all of this has been up and down. Like, I have friends out there in the Bay Area and in Southern California, like Ryan Calder's in chat talking about being getting in trouble for the stink bomb incident as well for himself. Like these people, it's ups and downs. Like, some people are taking it very well. Ryan's doing, great with, like, exercise routines and stuff. But then I got some people who are in San Jose area, Bay, and they're having problems. And the reason they're having problems is because, like, the governor keeps shutting things down, opening back up, partial reopening, and like, their small business owners they're just losing their ass. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, the big brands keep on trucking because they're not getting restrictions, and I think that's dangerous for the economics of things. But then again, you take not just California, but even here, Oklahoma, Arkansas, wherever. Everybody's being impacted with that,
Yeah, this pandemic has really been rough on the small businesses around here. I think Yelp released a report here not too long ago that said something like 77% of business or restaurants that closed
aren't opening
since
again.
March are never going to reopen. And I was like, holy shit.
That's sad, man. When you think about, like, here, there's been some businesses, some very old businesses that have lived through, Hurricane Camille, Hurricane Katrina, and made it through that. But because they had the insurance companies on their back. But now this time, this pandemic actually shut them down for good. These are 110-year-old businesses. Ryan has a question for you, Geek Nick. He wants to know: have you seen the Kissing the Ground doc?
Kissing the Ground doc? No, I have not.
All right. Yeah, you just want to know if it's like restaurants and bars are fucked. Yeah, they are, Ryan. They are definitely fucked. And I feel bad for anybody that owns one and runs one. So, But then again, go ahead.
I live in a small town here in Oklahoma, and our local businesses have been doing pretty well. The people have come out and supported them and kept them open, but I don't know how long that can continue, to be honest.
Yeah, you got sustainability problems, you know what I mean? Like, it's an issue where, people will get out there at first, and kind of get out there and champion that. But then, that money runs out because their job may have washed up or something like that, Ryan's saying that the document on Netflix is about farming, like Kissing the Ground. So, and Ryan, you can find more about Geeknik at geeknik-labs.com. I will post it in channel right now so that everybody can see it, because I'm in chat right now on YouTube. So,
right on. Yeah, I'll check out that that documentary. I'm a big fan of no-till farming, and we also raise our own worms. Right now, we just have probably about 1,000 red wigglers.
Nice.
Probably gonna some African night crawlers in the spring, and kind of around with those. They seem to go deeper in the soil than the red wigglers do.
Very nice. And and you're just raising them for composting purposes, or you're selling them for bait? What do you do with those, if you don't mind me asking?
We're doing vermicomposting, basically taking the scraps from the plants that we raise, and then we just feed that to the worms. Any kind of leftovers, vegetables and stuff from the neighbors, we'll just feed it to the worms. And we've gotten some really good worm castings, and some worm tea. So when we plant our peppers, we use water only, and our worm castings and the tea for nutrients. And that seems to be working pretty well.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to.
And then if we get too many worms, we can feed them to the fish. So
nice sustainability, right? Sustainability, and then that way.
Yes.
I mean, but that's the circular equivalence, right? Like, people need to understand that, like, a lot of people think that farming is just like, you got to do this to, like, just make the money, but there's also the idea that you have byproducts and waste that you don't want to just lose money, and that you need some added benefit of it, right? Like the worms feeding the fish. At some point, you can eat those fish and provide food for your family, kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly. And, we can take eggshells from the chickens, and we can feed that back to the worms as well. We're trying to be as sustainable and waste-free as we can. Obviously, there's going to be some things we won't really mess with.
I mean, there's always something.
Dispose of chicken waste, but other than that, yeah.
Well, I mean, you use that as fertilizer. I know people that do. I mean, again, like there are ways, like, you want to avoid as much waste as you can, because, like, it's literally that you're looking at it from a standpoint of, like, okay, can this benefit? And that's how we should have treated it. But, like, in our society today, consumerism has taught us, just throw it away. You know what I mean? Like, even in tech, that's the way it is. You get done with a laptop or something, you just throw it away now. You don't try to fix it. You don't try to give it to somebody. You just throw it away.
Yeah, it's. I don't know where society started to become so wasteful. I've started noticing it in tech a lot with these disposable devices that come with a lithium battery. You're just supposed to throw it away. What?
Yeah.
That's the epitome of waste right there.
Well, then also, since you're about to be doing the farming thing, how do you feel about the John Deere and other tractor manufacturers that are that have effectively ruled out the repair your own device kind of thing, right? Like, because now people are fighting for that for cell phones and even system on a chip laptops. How do you feel about that, about farming equipment?
I don't think they should be able to dictate that to the customer that has bought the equipment, but do we really own anything at this point? It seems like everything is subject to this sort of end user agreement, this, that, or the other. And if I bought it, I should be able to do what I want with it. If I want to modify it, if I want to make it better, it shouldn't be up to the company.
But
I think there was legislation before Congress sometime in the last few years that they were going to do something about it, but it probably didn't go anywhere.
I think that they gave them the right to repair, but I don't think that these people, or that these companies are obligated to provide much more than basic repair kind of things and documentation on that. And yeah, Tesla does do that, Ryan. And Ryan, I'll ask him those questions in just a minute. But basically, one of the things that I'm seeing is like, I have friends of mine who run farms around here, and one of the problems is that they're complaining about is, like, anytime they get a new tractor, because the old one finally is, like, just they can't do anymore with it, and they have to get one that's got a computer on it. It becomes a problem for them, because if anything goes wrong, they can no longer fix it. They have to take it and get it repaired by their people, Which, I mean, vehicles do the same thing, right? Like Ryan mentioned in chat, the Tesla does that, right? And then you got like others that do that, whether or not it's implied or not. But like every computer chip is different, and every system is different on how they handle this stuff. So, I mean, I think that's an overall bigger scope problem, you know?
I agree. I really don't. I really don't want a tractor that's got a computer in it. To be honest, I want one of those
Analog
old
models.
style. Yep, analog. Mid 40s, mid to late 40s. You know, and they took that World War II technology and started applying it to the consumer market.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think that's the growth, right? And then the other thing I wanted to ask you, because Ryan had asked in chat, besides addiction, what is the biggest safety issue you see with today regarding internet? And then why chili peppers?
Besides addiction, what is the... I'm sorry, you kind of broke up.
What's the biggest safety issue we see today with the internet? And then also why chili peppers? Chat question, so...
User education, I think, is the biggest danger on the internet. People not just diving in and not giving two thoughts to this, that, and the other. I'm not saying that, you know, they should, you know, take a class or something before they, you know, start using the internet, but maybe they should start taking a class before they start using the internet, you know. Like,
I'm not saying they should, but maybe they should.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you have to be safe when you're driving a car. You have to be safe when you're firing a gun. You have to be safe on the internet. I mean, learn how to, you know, safely share payment details and stuff like that.
But then I think that brings up another interesting point on the operational side of security and things. Now all of a sudden, you know, governments have long wanted this like ID system for people who use the internet to trace, you know, from start to finish what they're doing. I think that like the class helps, but the class will lead to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that, and that's unfortunate. I don't really think there needs to be a license to use the internet, but if they require it, I'm sure somebody will figure out a way to spoof it, which will be to everybody's benefit.
Oh yeah.
You know, the government can't implement anything right the first couple of times, so.
Well, I think Richard Stallman might, at his work at MIT, might have been right. You know, instead of, everybody using different passwords, everybody just used the same password, right? Like, kind of the idea that it could be any of us. We don't know. We all use the same password, so who knows who did what, right? And so I think that might be a good start if they implemented something like that. But I mean, there's so much risk in that, right? Like even today, like you tell someone, you know, hey, a lot of people are like, hey, I'm using this VPN, but they don't realize you're still trusting someone that you're sending this data through and various other things, right? Like you still are inherently sacrificing and trading off for this idea of security to some degree, you know what I mean? And I think that's dangerous. Like you have the class, which is a great idea for people to learn, but you know how bureaucracy works. They're going to turn it into an ID system, you know, and it will happen just like with guns and everything else.
Yep, and then they'll start charging money because, you know, they have to have their tax and, you know, this, that, and the other. But could you imagine the chaos of sharing an email address with 1 million other people?
I think it would be beautifully blissful to just watch it on like a stream for like half an hour to see it getting all the emails and stuff. I think SMTP would die, but I think it would be funny.
Yeah, I think it would completely crash whoever's server was running on. I don't even know if Google could handle 1 million people checking the same email address.
I guess you'd have to have auth going back and forth, even though they're using the same password. There'd still be, you know, best practices for using the, you know, the actual JWTs and stuff like that, or anything that they're using for backend calls and auth tokens and everything else. So session cookies, session timing, session IDs. I mean, like it would get insane when you would look at the back end. I mean, I'm sure some company that would listen to this would be like, You know what? That's a good data modeling practice. We should try that. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of risk there. I mean, I'm pro firearms. I'm pro everybody being off grid. I'm pro into the 3D printed gun scene. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's great that people are doing that. I think it's great that people are using technology and tools to change the game. But there's inherent risk with everything. But I think there's more inherent risk letting children on the internet, because they have a tendency to be brutally honest and tell people where they live and stuff. And then following back, why the chili peppers over any other pepper?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, I like spicy peppers.
Nice.
I've always liked spicy food. Habaneros are my favorite to eat like daily. They're hot, but they're not super hot like a ghost or an apocalypse scorpion or something like that. Plus, we did some math using a University of Texas study that was released in the 80s or 90s, this, that, and the other. Growing an acre of habaneros is extremely profitable.
Okay.
And we have 80 acres of land. So our problem is it's going to take 10,000 to 12,000 plants per acre. So we have a logistics problem we have to solve. And but we got time for that.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, that's always the thing, right? Like, there's always a problem. And like, I know you're like me, like to solve problems, like to figure things out, and like to, kind of source the stuff. And I think that that's funny that, like, we look at problems and we're like, well, we'll solve that problem when we get there. And then when it gets there, you're like, all right, well, now we have a solution for this problem. Let's hope it fucking works and roll the dice, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I admire you on going the farm route. I think that's great. I think that is something that people should really try to aspire to. Some of the people listening on this channel are big into crypto and things like that. And basically, laws, there's the first crypto bank out there and stuff. And I'm like, you're living in Southern California, and you think that moving to the middle of Wyoming and Cabasas or something like that's going to be an easy change. No, there's actual weather in those states, right? Like, it does snow, it gets cold, it gets warm, it changes fairly. You know what I mean? Like there's, if people just assume that moving out into the middle of nowhere is just going to be like the calm city life type thing where the weather is one way or the other, and they don't realize how extreme it gets, especially in desolate areas. I mean, even where you're going to be, you said that it's not going to rain, but about how many inches per year?
About 10.
So what about snow?
Regional. It does snow in the area because it's above 4,000 or 5,000 feet elevation. So, but it's not very much.
Okay. I was just wondering.
It does close down the interstate in the area. So, not like Wyoming. Everybody's totally into Wyoming until winter comes and you can't even go down the interstate because the snowplows can't move.
Yes. I mean, like I said, people think that it's going to be the same as where they are, and then they go there, and like, I always advise people, like I was telling a friend of mine, who recently was talking about it via Twitter DM to me, and he was like, man, I think I'm really going to go. We talked on the phone about it, and I was like, look, I don't think you understand that the changes. I was like, you live in Malibu, okay? It really stays nice. And and it's great, but like Wyoming has seasons, okay? Like, it has seasons.
Yes. In Malibu, have you ever seen snow?
yeah. Like, people freak out when it's 50 degrees in Southern California. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, gotta bundle up like I'm going out in the snow, even though they've never seen it down there. But yeah, I mean, circling back on things, I think it's great that you're going to the farm, and like Ryan just pointed out, that there are tornadoes that are no joke in Oklahoma, and Tornado Alley is a real thing, and you have adversarial conditions that you're openly walking into, as being like what you see as your future being there, and I think that's great. I think it's even more awesome that you're sharing information about your farming, what you're doing and how you're exploring this stuff. Because like a lot of people, think that they're going to get involved with it, but they don't realize, like, it takes research and time. Like, probably how much research have you done just in looking at what's going to be suitable for you to farm and such?
Well, I just looking at the land before we even decided on it, I stared at the listing for the land for a good 6 months while I was doing research on if the area was even going to be suitable for growing habaneros.
Wow. So you spent 6 months on and off, like, in your time that you had, just kind of fawning over the idea of it, but you had to research it. And, like, I think that that's a smart thing. I think anytime somebody wants to make a move or a jump, they should probably spend about that much time to figure out if it's going to be worthwhile, but not like just thinking about it, like actually researching, like, hey, this is the elevation. What are the almanacs say about this? What does weather data say? What does, like, what's the likelihood of a tornado coming through our property? You know what I mean? That kind of stuff I think is important for people to really understand before, going on this off-grid adventures, right?
Oh, most definitely. And even then, you're not going to be ready for everything, as shown by that derecho that came through Iowa and Nebraska and parts of the Midwest and wiped out all that corn and wheat.
Yep, that's true. I mean, like, those are also things, and then also, like, communications. People are so used to being, and I'm sure you can attest to this, there are a lot of places that don't have good cell phone reception in rural America.
No, there's not. I mean, I'm 20 minutes from Oklahoma City right now, and I can go a quarter mile down the road and I won't have a signal from AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, any of them.
Same here. I mean, I'm not that far. Like, I'm not really close to a major city. Like, the nearest major city from here would be New Orleans. And then, yes, B2 LEE, B2 Lee was literally I was going to that point. He just said M radio. I was going to say, a lot of people really should get into amateur radio and radio in general and CBs and understanding their use cases when you want to move to an area that's rural or that's not as established. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, first of all, you should do that anyway. Because it is important. You never know when it could save your life or someone else's. But also, in general, it's a good idea when you're moving to areas with spotty internet and you ain't got no cell phone that's working at home. Guess the only comms you're going to have is going to be a radio.
Yes. And it's very simple to send the email using a radio.
Ooh, what? People really don't understand. I was saying, ooh, what? You can send email? You can send all kinds of data over radios. I mean, people, especially ham, it has data protocols, and it has a data protocol. And, it's interesting because, like, a lot of people overlook this stuff. And, I think that it's funny because you and I don't, but, like, a lot of people in our same circles just think that we're crazy to work with radios. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't understand it.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are like, you talk to people on a radio? Do you not have a phone?
Yes, I get that a lot too. Like, people are like,
"What? A radio, thank you."
Yes, I mean, your phone is a radio. Actually, your cell phone's a glorified cordless telephone from the 90s, if we're honest about how they work, right? And a lot of people have that misconception too. They just believe that there's some satellite or some connection and that the relays work. They don't realize that these towers actually still connect to the landline system and hit a beacon server to find out where the nearest bounce is to the number you're calling so they can send out the notification. They don't even realize all that. You know what I mean? It's magic. It's magic.
Yes, there's a little man in a box who pulls the levers. He's made to 4.
I mean, the other thing is a lot of people don't understand also is like termination costs in remote regions too of the United States. There's a stretch in Idaho where all the people who were providing the leasing spots for the towers, they got to set their termination costs. And a termination cost is when you make the connection on that radio, right? Like, on that tower. And so when you jump a tower, the providers have to eat the termination cost. That's all calculated in your monthly bill and all that kind of stuff. Most people, it's not that bad, especially today, because most people actually don't talk on the phone as much as they used to. Now it's more about texting and using apps to communicate, not necessarily voice. And so like there was these guys in Idaho, they all marked their termination cost like $8 each. So it was a stretch. It was like 180 something miles of like the most expensive cell phone calls to providers in the country, because they were all $8. They didn't even care. $8 all through the line. So I meant every time someone was driving through and it jumped to a new tower, that was $8, and so on and so on. And yeah, so that got changed obviously, but like I thought that was a great civil disobedient thing to kind of like basically say, yeah, here, we'll take your money and build the tower. We get to set this stuff, so we're going to set it super high so that we keep you out of here. I think that's a great demonstration of the power of, especially of Americans, right? Like being able to do those types of things. And I think that's one way of getting back at the man, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about the cellular switching networks and the interconnect and all that. But speaking of fees and stuff, this new property, 4 miles to electric service, and the utility company wants $1 million to run 4 miles.
They want $1 million from you to run electricity. Wow.
Yes, there's like a 25 checklist to get electric. So we're going to do solar and wind and lithium batteries. So,
damn, that's crazy. And what about the internet? So if that's what's that?
Well, the solar and wind will be a tiny bit cheaper than having utility service run to the property.
Yeah, and so how are you getting your internet line ran out there? Are you just going to use HughesNet or what?
We're on the waiting list for Starlink, so we're going to give that a shot. One of the cool things about signing up for Starlink is you don't need an address. You can just give them, it's a code that Google Maps generates. It's kind of like a GPS address, and you can give that to Starlink, and they're like, oh, you do live in the middle of nowhere.
Wow, that's awesome.
So,
I mean,
otherwise we'll probably use AT&T LTE for most of our internet service until we get Starlink.
Nice. I was going to ask if you got cell phone coverage out on the property, because I was like, depending on how far away you are, you may not. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah, there's an interstate that's within about 20 miles of the property, so there's actually good cell service. Yeah.
So that makes sense. Like I said, I was just curious about that because, even here, there are people who live off grid on houseboats that are completely solared, have diesel, backup generators, that kind of stuff. Even an off-grid mining operation that we're running, like literally, and people are doing it, but like it's a lot more to calculate for, because like if you're living off lithium batteries, things like that. I mean, one thing I would suggest to you, I know it's going to sound crazy, get you a generator just in case, you know what I mean? Like just in case, or actually get you a welding machine that's diesel powered that you can convert into a generator, which you can get dual purpose out of, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's something that people often forget, is a good welding machine can be converted into a generator very quickly.
Oh, most definitely. One of our neighbors had a welding machine when the wildfires came through in 2012, and he basically hooked the whole neighborhood up with power just from that welding machine he had.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the power. I mean, like, I grew up down here, and then I moved out west. But like when I was growing up, like literally hurricane season, like that was the thing. If your neighbors had a welding machine, everybody kind of stopped by everybody's house. Hey, you need some juice for a couple of hours? I'll leave it here. Power, get your fridge and everything back cold again to keep stuff, from spoiling and things like that. And then, They leave it there for a couple hours and then come back and then take it to the next house, that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, that's also the hospitality of people in remote rural areas. They do that kind of stuff. And, city dwellers aren't used to that kind of interaction with their neighbors, right? Like, you actually know your neighbors now. And when you get out there, what few neighbors you may have, anywhere nearby, you will still know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up in Milwaukee, and other than a couple of people right in the immediate area, we didn't know any of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, we'd see them and be like, we don't know who they are.
I mean, you see them every day, but you don't know them.
Yeah, and then we moved to Oklahoma, and this little small town, and everybody knows everybody, and it's good and bad, but I dig.
It's good because everybody knows everybody for the good stuff. It's bad because anything happens, it's the talk of the town. It don't matter what it was. It's everybody's business now.
Yep. One good thing from an OPSEC perspective about living in a small town is it's easy to tell when new people show up.
That's true. You can always tell when the feds start kind of trying to ease their way into your territory. You'd be like, there's a car I don't recognize. Who is this person? Who is this person, right?
Yeah. And funny story, and a lot of people, maybe even some of the people that are listening right now may not know, but I did about a decade in law enforcement, and it was actually here in this town where I live, where I did most of it, and people to this day still call me instead of 911 or the local dispatch or whatever, and I'm like, there ain't nothing I can do for you, but I appreciate you calling and give me a heads up anyway.
Thank you for the tip. I'm not Crime Stoppers. I'm also not law enforcement anymore, but thank you for the heads up. I will not go down that road because someone got into an accident. Thank you. Like, I hate it for them, or somebody hit a deer or something. Well, I'm not going down there. I don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean?
I will answer if somebody calls me and says they hit a deer. I will go though, because man, if it's not too messed up, fresh deer meat is a hot commodity, right? Bow season started today.
Oh, did it? Bow season already started there?
Yeah, it runs through February.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got a long bow season, but there's not a lot of bow hunters here.
Really? I wonder why that is. I mean,
black pouch starts I think at the beginning of November.
Wow.
And then rifle season starts around just before Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah. Do you guys have dog season?
Not long at all.
Do you guys have a dog season?
Yeah. For waterfowl, I think.
Not for deer?
No. And they may have a dog season in southeast Oklahoma because we have bear in southeast Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So they may allow that.
See, people.
I know some guys here that use dogs to hunt wild pigs.
Yeah, that's common here, but we have a lot of bayous here, so giant sows and stuff are pretty easy to find. They come in the backyard all the time. The water comes up, there's pigs in the yard. And then the dogs go nuts. Like, my dogs just go wild over them. But then, and then, you kill them or whatnot, but, man, they tear up your yard. You can't have anything nice when you got wild hogs nearby. Like, they will destroy it.
Oh, yeah, they'll destroy everything. Especially if they can smell food. I've seen them tear through the walls of a mobile home very easily to get what they perceive as food.
Oh yeah, but then you have this other risk, right? Like, a lot of people who live in an area where there's going to be wild hogs because of the rivers and waters and stuff. A lot of them have septic tank systems, so they don't dump grease and stuff down there, right? So instead, they'll find a spot in the yard and kind of dump it, far away, try to get as far away as they can from the house, depending on how lazy they are. But that right there is just bringing them into the yard. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely not something you want to be doing.
But people do it, man. And then they're like, why are these pigs in my yard? It's like, because you dump grease.
Yeah, dump it in somebody else's yard.
Or just go wait. I mean, or put it in I don't know. When I was growing up, my family just put it in a coffee jar. like the
yeah.
Folgers coffee thing, and they fill it up, and then like we would have to take it, you know what, probably almost 4 acres, or 3.5 acres back, and dump it there. We had this little patch outside of these trees that were growing, that we planted, to be, cut down, 10 years later or whatever. And basically we were, in this plot, and like we were way back there in the back, and then that's where we could do that. And we would go pretty much like once every, probably week, but like everything that was grease, you put it in that damn coffee container. You were not allowed to put it in the yard anywhere that was close by, or you get your ass beat. Like my parents did not play on that. They get your ass beat.
Yeah, my parents did the same with their cooking grease and baking grease and whatnot, but I never knew what happened to the containers. They were just there, and then there was a full one, and then the next day there was an empty one. I was like, I don't know where it's going. At that time, we lived in the city, so there was really no telling. Maybe they were just tossing it in the dumpster.
Oh yeah, maybe so. I mean, but like, yeah, I grew up in a rural area, right? Like really rural. My class was only like 106 people. So like you knew everybody, and like it was like usually a 2 to 3 acre walk to get to your neighbor's house kind of thing, and everybody had cows or big vast pieces of land. They, you farmed because that's what you did in the summertime. Yeah, everybody else talking, in the cities like, yeah, I'm getting to do this, I'm getting to do that. Yeah, we were busting our ass, and our idea of getting a time to cool off was like jumping in the river maybe, and then getting back out and going back to work on the fields and stuff. And that was summer.
Hay,
yeah. Cutting hay. I mean, I remember one summer I was and you would have to help your neighbors too. That was the other thing also. If you grow up in small rural areas, you end up being free labor if you're a kid for your neighbors too, especially if the neighbors have like 2 young daughters, and the wife's to stay at home, and the dad's a hard worker, but on Saturdays he needs help, like, and your parents were good. Yeah, you'd be over there busting your ass. All you get out of the deal was maybe some sweet tea, but hey, whatever it was. But if you needed something though, boy, they was always there. They didn't care. Like they dropped whatever you was doing. Oh, you need a ride somewhere? Sure. Like running late for something, you got to call them. They take you to practice or something like that. You know what I mean? But like, that was just the way it was. But dude, there was so many Saturdays I would end up having to help these one neighbors like do hay, or even worse, we had to help him dig this like pond out for his cows. Oh my God, it was terrible, fucking terrible. Yeah, the smell.
Oh yeah. Shoveling the neighbor's cow manure.
Yes. Oh man. Well, I want to tell you, thank you for coming on, Geek Nick. And if you got anything else you want to talk about, show your site, stuff you got coming up, let everybody know. Otherwise, we could just sit here and talk about rural life and off-gridding all night. But, I'm sure you got some other things to do. But if you're interested in doing that one night, we should do it. Maybe we'll do it over ham radio or something, and I can stream it on tour or something. But yeah, if you got anything you want to share with us, what projects you're working on, anything like that, where people can find more about you, please go ahead so that the audience is listening.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Geeknick. I'm also on Instagram. It's where I post a lot of pictures of the peppers and other stuff. And then my website, geeknick-labs.com. Email address on there if anybody has any questions, wants to talk about whatever, pick my brain, whatever. Set up a time to make contact on ham radio. I've already worked all states, but if somebody else needs to get it and needs Oklahoma, hit me up.
Awesome.
Otherwise, thanks for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on, man. I think everybody got a good little crash course in some fuzzing, some farming decisions, and getting some insight as to like the tools and things of the trade for some of that. I think it's great. And again, thank you for coming on. I think it was a great discussion, and